What if I told you that one of the greatest heroes of World War II never fired a single bullet? He was beaten by his own men, mocked, humiliated, court-martialed for refusing to carry a gun. But on the bloodiest battlefields of the Pacific Theater, when all the other men retreated, he ran back into hell alone and prayed, "Lord, help me get one more." This is the incredible, true story of the only conscientious objector ever awarded the Medal of Honor. Today, we are going deep into real-life story behind the movie Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson. It is a story of faith, bravery, and a miracle on the battlefield that saved 75 lives. Let's dive right in. Persecuted for his beliefs. It all began in the barracks, where Doss had been battered and bruised from a beating by his own comrades. When asked by the sergeant who had beaten Doss up, Doss replied that he had never been beaten up at all.
Private Doss, can you identify the men that beat you?
No, Sarge.
Are you saying that you don't know who attacked you?
I never said I was attacked, Sarge.
The truth, however, was that Doss had been dragged out of his bed by his roommates and beaten because he refused to carry a gun. He had become a laughingstock every day, with constant taunts, pranks, and insults hurled at him wherever he went. His girlfriend's picture was stolen and ridiculed by his comrades almost on a daily basis. And it was not just physical agony that he was forced to endure, but emotional too.
Please give it back, Smitty.
Please give it back, Smitty.
Additionally, his genuine plea to go home and be present at his wedding was refused, and it is no wonder that he felt alone and confined. All he had to do was demonstrate his proficiency with a rifle, but he would not. Even with the threat of prison and court-martial staring at him in the face, he remained unmoved. While others were taking life, Doss was saving life, and it was his moral courage and faith that set him apart in a world gone mad with violence. The faith that shaped him his nonviolent stance was a result of his childhood experiences. When Doss was just a young boy, he had almost killed his brother in a heated argument. This experience had left him shaken. At the same time, he had also seen a picture that showed Cain standing over Abel with a look that had left Doss shaken. He had then vowed never to hurt another human being again. Doss had also come from a family that was terrorized by his father's violent temper and drunkenness. On one fateful night, Doss, who was just a young boy, had grabbed a gun, hoping to confront his father and end the terror. However, the pleas from his mother had saved the day, and Doss had vowed never to lay hands on another gun again. As he matured, he began to comprehend that his true calling in this world was not to bring harm to others, but to help those in need. He learned this lesson when he played a crucial role in the rescue of a man whose artery was severed in the leg. He did this by effectively using a tourniquet. It was at this time that he met the woman who would become the love of his life, Dorothy Schutte. It was this woman who believed in him, and this woman who became the source of his strength and courage. Through these events, Doss developed a philosophy that would be the core of all the choices he ever made, no matter the danger he might face. A different kind of soldier. Doss was immediately called to duty upon hearing of the attack on Pearl Harbor. He felt it was wrong for others to fight and die while he stayed home, untouched by the dangers of war. Doss was inspired by his moral obligation to join the military, with the intention of serving in the medical corps, where he could help people rather than hurt them. However, Doss was mistakenly assigned to the infantry instead of the medical corps, which was his initial intention. This was to be the first of many trials for Doss. During boot camp, Doss suffered from constant abuse. Doss's superiors did not trust him and looked down upon him, considering his refusal to carry a weapon a threat to military discipline. Doss's fellow soldiers shunned him, calling him a coward, making fun of his religious beliefs, and trying to weaken his resolve with intimidation and ridicule. They even had Doss undergo a psychiatric evaluation, believing that only a crazy person would refuse to carry a weapon in a war.
I don't think that poses a problem, do you, Sergeant? I'm putting you in for a Section 8 psychiatric discharge.
The evaluation showed that Doss was mentally healthy, but that did not stop the abuse. Doss stood on his ground, refusing to touch a rifle, even in the face of a very real threat of imprisonment or dishonorable discharge.
I won't touch a rifle, sir.
I'm not asking you, Private! Refuse, and I will have no recourse but to court-martial you. And you will spend the duration of the war in a military prison.
Ultimately, He was court-martialed, and it seemed as though his moral stance might lead to him losing everything. But Doss' father stepped in, writing a compelling letter from Washington, D.C., arguing that Desmond had a legal right to serve as a conscientious objector. Doss was allowed to serve in the medical corps without ever being required to touch a weapon.
Defendant's rights as a conscientious objector are protected by an act of Congress, and he cannot be compelled to waive those rights. I withdraw the charges, sir. Then this case is dismissed. Private Doss, you are free to run into the hellfire of battle without a single weapon to protect yourself. You may resume your duties and begin training as a combat medic.
But this was only the beginning of Doss' journey, and it was a journey of courage and compassion in the face of unimaginable horrors to be found on the front lines of war. Doss was about to face the unimaginable, yet he stood firm in his commitment to saving lives, guided by his faith and his moral code, refusing to ever compromise, no matter what the cost. The Battle of Hacksaw Ridge. In May 1945, Doss and his medical crew were deployed to the top of a 400-foot cliff known as Hacksaw Ridge, which seemed suicidal given the exposed position. From the time he arrived, the battle was intense. Explosions rocked the ground beneath his feet, the sound of machine guns whizzing through the air, and the mist-covered summit was covered with the bodies of dead soldiers. The Japanese attack was overwhelming, with many American forces fleeing the battle in fear and confusion. However, Doss did not flee. While the rest retreated from the hail of bullets and shells, Doss stood his ground, aware that if he retreated, he would be leaving his men to death. Seated alone atop the mountain and under enemy fire, Doss finally decided to make a decision that would determine his legacy. He started to frantically search for the wounded, despite the risk of his own life. By employing the knots and rope work that had been ridiculed mercilessly during his training, Doss carefully secured each of the wounded soldiers and hauled them to safety down the cliff. His hands were torn and bleeding, and his body was exhausted, but his faith never wavered. Repeatedly, he whispered an unshakable prayer. "Lord, help me get one more."
One more. Help me get one more.
Time dragged on as an endless nightmare of blood, smoke, and death, but this was Doss's bravery never wavered. Despite the cacophony of noise and the danger of being shot, Doss continued to save one soldier after another, running endlessly across the ridge, often crawling on top of the dying to get to those in the most perilous position. By the end of the night, without firing a single shot, Doss had saved 75 soldiers. The bravery, selflessness, and moral strength of Doss became the ray of hope during the nightmarish horrors of war, and it was all due to his faith and the strength of the human spirit. Honor earned through courage. Among the lives he saved were those of the men who had once taunted, beat, and bullied him. Men who had called him a coward, men who had stolen his personal belongings, men who had derided his religious beliefs, were now fighting to live because of his courage and determination to save them. Not even the captain, who had once questioned Doss' ability to fight, could say he had ever been more wrong about a man. Doss had not only survived the horrors of war, he had, in fact, redefined what it really meant to be brave. The men he saved came to trust him absolutely. During one particularly heavy firefight, the next order of men to advance up the ridge was held back because they would not advance until Doss finished his prayer for the wounded. They had also come to believe in him as much as he had always believed in himself.
What the hell is your delay, Captain? You were supposed to begin that assault 10 minutes ago.
We're waiting, sir.
Waiting for what?
Private Doss to finish praying for us, sir.
His faith, courage, and unselfish service had gained their respect and admiration in a way that no training or equipment could have done. Even though he was wounded by a grenade, he continued to serve the wounded men, treating and evacuating them before he was finally carried away from the battlefield. For his bravery, Desmond Doss was honored with the Medal of Honor by President Harry Truman, the highest honor given to an American hero. The story of Desmond Doss came to represent heroism, faith, and moral commitment, and it showed that it was possible to be moral even in the face of unimaginable brutality. The legacy and impact of Doss' life extended far beyond his comrades in arms. In 2016, the remarkable story of Doss came to life on the big screen in the film Hacksaw Ridge, directed by Mel Gibson and starring Andrew Garfield as Doss. The film introduced the world to the remarkable story of Doss' life, his childhood, his commitment to his faith, his struggles in boot camp, and his heroism in combat. The film encouraged people all across the world to remember that true heroism is not measured by the weapons one carries, but by the lives one is willing to save, the principles one is willing to uphold, and the compassion one is willing to exert in the face of adversity. The story of Doss is one that continues to inspire people today, as it is a testament to the strength of the human spirit. So, Desmond Doss's life is not just an account of the war. It is an account of the strength of faith and conviction. It is an account of standing firm in the face of adversity, of being different in a world that demands conformity. It is an account of the strength of conviction, not the strength of the gun you wield. It is an account of the bravest man being the man who chooses not to kill. It is an account of the power of prayer for one more life. This story tells us that in a world that worships power, he showed that faith is more powerful than any bullet. He walked into hell without a gun and walked out a hero, not because he shot anyone, but because he saved lives. Did you enjoy that story? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Would you have had the courage to be a lone hero like Doss? So, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this story because sometimes the bravest hero is the one with the cleanest hands.